If this video found you, it wasn't random. The universe doesn't make delivery mistakes. There are signals that appear precisely when something major is about to shift. And this is one of them. In the next few minutes, you'll understand why something impossible might be on the verge of manifesting in your life. But first, you need to hear this message all the way through. You know that feeling that you're always one step behind? That things happen for others, but never for you? That you do everything right, but nothing really changes? Well, maybe the problem isn't what you're doing. Maybe it's what you haven't stopped doing yet. Because there's a moment in life, and it arrives without warning, when the impossible stops being impossible. Not because the world changed, but because you finally stopped blocking what was already coming. What if I told you that moment could be right now? Listen, there's an old story that illustrates this perfectly. The story of a man who spent his entire life waiting for a miracle. He prayed, begged, pleaded, every single day, the same request. Get me out of this situation. Show me a way. Give me a sign. One day, a flood began. The water rose fast. A neighbor drove by in a car and shouted, "Get in, I'll take you somewhere safe." He replied, "No need. God will save me." The water rose higher. A boat appeared. "Climb in, quick." He shook his head. "No, I trust. God will save me." The water covered the house. He climbed onto the roof. A helicopter dropped a rope. "Grab it. It's your last chance." He refused again. "No, I know God will save me." He drowned. And when he arrived on the other side, he asked, furious, "Why didn't you save me?" And the answer came, "I sent you a car, a boat, and a helicopter. You're the one who wouldn't get in." You know why I'm telling you this? Because we spend our whole lives asking for the impossible to happen. But when it shows up, we don't recognize it. We expect lightning, thunder, a voice from the sky. But the universe doesn't work that way. It whispers. It places people in your path. It opens small doors. It sends signals, like this video right now on your screen. And if you ignore it, it won't knock on your door again, at least not the same way. So pay attention. Because there are 3 clear signals that something impossible is about to happen in your life. And if you recognize these signals and act with them, not against them, everything shifts. First signal: you're tired of your own excuse. You know that story you've been telling yourself for years. "I can't because it doesn't work for me, because I tried." But yeah, there comes a time when even you get sick of it. And when that happens, it's because something inside you has already stopped believing it. This isn't discouragement, it's clarity. Because as long as you believe the excuse, it protects you. It keeps you safe inside the known zone, even if that zone is painful. But when you get tired of it, it's because a part of you already knows it's a lie. And that part is ready for something else. The problem is that most people feel this and panic. Because if the excuse doesn't work anymore, what's left? Then fear comes. And fear brings back the excuse, just with a different name. "It's not the right time. I need to prepare more. I'll wait for a bigger sign." But the bigger sign is exactly this tiredness. It's the excuse itself losing power. If you're feeling this right now, write this down. The impossible has already begun. You just haven't acted like it's true yet. Second signal: things around you start to crumble. And that's scary. Because we've been conditioned to think success comes when everything's in place, when everything flows, when everything makes sense. But the truth is the opposite. Major shifts happen when the floor disappears, when what you thought was solid, the job, the relationship, the certainty, simply dissolves. And then you're there, in the void, not knowing what to do. And you know what that void is? It's space. Space for something new to enter. Think about it. If your hands are full, how are you going to hold something new? You won't. You'll drop it. Or worse, you'll try to balance everything and end up losing it all anyway, just with more suffering in between. The universe isn't cruel. It just doesn't waste time. When it wants to deliver something big to you, it first empties your hands. And if you resist, if you try to hold on to what's already dead, it'll have to tear it away with more force. But if you let go, if you accept that what's leaving has already served its purpose, then you free the channel, and the impossible enters. Before we continue, do me a favor. If you're following along and something inside you is recognizing these signals, drop a like. Because that shows me this message is reaching who needs to hear it. And it helps me deliver it to more people who are also at the right moment. Third signal, you start attracting coincidences. You know when you think of someone and they message you? When you need information and someone mentions exactly that, out of nowhere? When things start falling into place in a way that feels scripted, that's not luck, it's alignment. When you stop resisting, when you release control, when you accept that you don't need to know the how, just the what and the why, the energy shifts. You exit the frequency of struggle and enter the frequency of flow. And in flow, things come to you. Not because you deserved it, not because you were good, but because you finally stopped blocking. Think of a faucet. If you keep squeezing it, trying to force the water out in a specific way, it splatters, clogs, wastes. But if you just open it and let it flow, the water comes naturally, at the right pace, without effort. Most people live squeezing the faucet, trying to control every detail, every step, every result. And then they complain that nothing happens. But the problem isn't that nothing happens, it's that they themselves locked the flow. So when coincidences start appearing, don't ignore them. Don't call it illusion. Don't rationalize. Just accept. Because this is the universe showing you that you finally unlocked. And then comes the question nobody wants to ask. But that changes everything. What are you going to do with this? Because recognizing the signals is one thing. Acting on them is something completely different. Some people see all the signals, feel all of this, recognize that something's about to change, and still stay frozen. Why? Because recognizing the signal means taking responsibility. It means you can't hide behind "I didn't know" or "nobody told me" anymore. You were told. The universe told you. And now the choice is yours. And look, this choice isn't easy. Because it requires you to abandon the old identity. That person you've been up until now, with all their stories, traumas, excuses, fears. They need to stay behind. And that hurts. It's like a snake shedding its skin. It doesn't choose. It has to. If it doesn't release the old skin, it dies. But the process is uncomfortable, vulnerable, scary. For a few days, it's exposed, sensitive, without protection. But afterwards, it grows. And you'll grow too, but only if you accept letting go of who you were to become who you can be. There's a phrase I heard once and never forgot. The impossible is only impossible while you're still trying to make it happen with the old version of you. Let me repeat that. The impossible is only impossible while you're still trying to make it happen with the old version of you. This means the problem was never the goal, never the dream, never out there. The problem was always in here. The version of you that's operating with old programming, old beliefs, old fears. So the real question is, Are you willing to become someone else to have a different life? Because if you want the same life you have now, you can stop here. But if you want something different, something that today seems impossible, then you need to accept that the person you are today isn't enough to get there. And that's okay. It's not an insult. It's just logic. You can't drive a Formula One car with the driver's license you got at 18. You need another level of skill, another level of preparation, another level of mindset. And the good news? You already have all of that inside you. You just haven't activated it yet, because the impossible isn't something that comes from outside. It's already here, inside you, waiting. But it only manifests when you finally open yourself to it. And how do you open yourself? By stopping the fight, stopping the control, stopping the proving, stopping the performing. You just trust. And I know that sounds too simple. I know it seems vague, abstract, one of those things people say, but nobody knows how to actually apply. So let me be more direct. Trust isn't sitting and waiting. Trust is acting without guarantee. It's taking the step without knowing if the ground will appear. It's letting go of the branch without seeing the net. And that's where most people freeze. Because we want certainty before acting. We want the guaranteed result before investing. We want proof before faith. But it doesn't work that way. It never has. Faith isn't believing it will work out. Faith is acting even without believing it will work out. It's doing it scared. It's continuing despite doubt. Because the universe doesn't respond to those who believe. It responds to those who act. There's a passage that says, "Faith without works is dead." And this isn't religious. It's practical. You can believe all you want. You can visualize, affirm, repeat mantras, but if you don't move a finger, nothing happens. So if you want the impossible to happen, you need to take the first impossible step. That step that makes no sense, that nobody will understand, that you yourself aren't sure about, but that, deep down, you know you need to take. And when you take that step, something shifts. Not necessarily in the world, but in you. You become someone else, and that someone else attracts a different reality. So, let's recap. You recognized the signals. You understood that the impossible is knocking on your door. You know you need to act, but now comes the part nobody talks about. What to do when everything inside you screams to go back, because that's what happens. You take the step. You make the decision. You commit. And the next day, or that same night, that voice comes. You're crazy. This won't work. Who do you think you are? That voice isn't intuition. It's not wisdom. It's not protection. It's fear disguised as common sense. And fear has one very specific job. Keep you alive. Not make you happy. Not make you fulfilled. Just keep you breathing. Inside the known zone, away from any risk. So when you decide to leave the known zone, fear panics. And it'll use every tool it has. Painful memories, catastrophic projections, comparisons, self-criticism, shame. It'll remind you of every time you tried and failed. It'll show you people who failed trying the same thing. It'll paint horrible scenarios of what might happen if you continue. And you know why? Because it knows that if you continue, it loses power. It stops being the pilot of your life. And it doesn't want that. But here's the secret. You don't need to defeat fear. You just need to stop obeying it. Think of a dog barking. It barks because it wants to scare you, make you retreat. But if you keep walking, it realizes the barking doesn't work, and eventually, it stops. Fear is the same thing. It'll bark, a lot. But if you keep walking, it gets tired. It loses strength. It becomes just background noise. And then you realize something incredible. Fear was never the problem. The problem was thinking you needed to wait for it to leave before you could act. You don't. You can act with fear. Actually, you should act with fear. Because if there's no fear, it's not growth. It's just repetition. Look, there's a huge difference between courage and absence of fear. Courage isn't not feeling fear. Courage is feeling fear and doing it anyway. It's recognizing fear, accepting it's there, and choosing the next step regardless. And that's exactly where the impossible starts becoming possible. When you stop waiting for perfect conditions. When you stop waiting to feel ready. When you stop waiting for permission. You simply act. Imperfect, incomplete, insecure, but in motion. Because movement generates moment, and moment generates momentum. And momentum is what transforms the impossible into inevitable. Think of a boulder at the top of a mountain. At first, it's still. You push, and it barely moves. You push again, and it rolls slowly. But if you keep pushing, there comes a point where it gains speed. And then it doesn't need you anymore. It descends on its own. It creates its own path. It becomes unstoppable. Your life works the same way. At first, it's hard. It's slow. It's frustrating. You push, 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 and it seems nothing changes. But if you don't quit, you reach the tipping point. The moment when accumulated energy transforms into real movement. And then everything flows. But most people quit before that point. They push 2, 3 times, don't see immediate results, and conclude it doesn't work. And they go back to the old life, to the known comfort, to the same old excuse. And you know what's saddest? They were one push away from the breakthrough. Literally. Just one more step, just one more try, just one more day. But they'll never know, because they quit too soon. So if there's anything I want you to remember from this message, it's this. The impossible is only impossible until the moment it's not anymore. And you never know when that moment will arrive. Could be tomorrow, could be in a month, could be in the next step. But if you stop now, you guarantee it'll never arrive. So tell me something. Have you been through this? Have you felt you were close to something big and quit? Or are you living this right now? Write it down below. I read every comment. And there are many people here who need to know they're not alone in this. Now, there's another important point. We talked about signals, action, persistence. But there's one piece missing, and without it, none of this really works. That piece is detachment from the how. Let me explain. Most people know what they want. I want financial freedom. I want a healthy relationship. I want to live doing what I love. Fine. That's the what. Some people also know the why. Because I'm tired of living in chaos. Because I deserve to be happy. Because I want to leave a legacy. Great. That's fuel. But then comes the problem. Everyone wants to know the how. How will I get there? What's the exact step? What's the formula? What's the shortcut? And that's where everything locks up. Because you can't know the how before walking. The path reveals itself by walking, not before. Think of a road at night. You've got your car's headlights on. They illuminate about 50 meters ahead. You can see enough to take the next step, make the next turn, but you don't see the final destination. You don't see the entire road. And that's fine. You don't need to see it. You just need to trust that if you keep moving forward, the headlights will keep illuminating the next stretch, and the next, and the next. But most people want to see the entire road before starting the car, and so they stay frozen, waiting, planning, looking for guarantees, and they never leave the spot. The universe doesn't work that way. It doesn't reveal the complete plan. It reveals the next step. And only when you take that step does it reveal the following one. So if you're waiting to have everything mapped out before acting, you'll wait forever. And the impossible will remain impossible. Not because it's truly impossible, but because you'll never discover the path without starting to walk. Now comes a part that might be uncomfortable, but it needs to be said. If you want the impossible to happen, you need to become the person the impossible happens to. And this isn't about effort. It's not about working harder, waking up earlier, taking more courses. This is about identity. Who are you, deep down, when nobody's watching? Are you the person who quits at the first difficulty, or the person who finds another way? Are you the person who complains about circumstances, or the person who creates new circumstances? Are you the person who waits for permission, or the person who gives themselves permission? Because the world doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to who you are. If you're a person living in scarcity mode, you'll attract scarcity. Even if you visualize abundance, affirm abundance, talk about abundance. Because the real frequency is what you emit when you're not trying. And what's that frequency? It's your automatic actions, the choices you make without thinking, how you treat the small things. You want abundance, but complain about wrong change. You want respect, but don't respect your own time. You want love, but don't give yourself love. Life is a mirror. It doesn't give you what you want. It reflects back who you are. So if you want to change the reflection, you need to change the source. And this doesn't happen overnight. It's not a switch you flip. It's a process. It's a daily, silent, intentional reconstruction. It's waking up and choosing to respond differently. It's feeling anger and choosing not to react impulsively. It's wanting to quit and choosing to take one more step. They're micro decisions, small, invisible, that nobody sees, nobody applauds, nobody values, but that, added up, turn you into someone else. And that someone else lives a different life. There's a phrase that sums this up perfectly. How you do anything is how you do everything. If you're careless with small things, you'll be careless with big things. If you're impatient in traffic, you'll be impatient with your projects. If you're hard on yourself for small mistakes, you'll be hard on yourself for big ones. So the impossible doesn't happen with one grand gesture. It happens with 1,000 small gestures, consistent, aligned with who you want to become. And then comes the question that changes everything. Who do you need to be for the impossible to become natural? Not forced. Natural. Because when something is natural, you don't need to force it. You don't need to convince yourself. You simply are. And when you simply are, the world around you reorganizes to reflect that. It's like gravity. You don't need to believe in it for it to work. It just works. Always. Because it's a law. And there's an invisible law that governs manifestation. You attract what you are, not what you want. So stop chasing, stop forcing, stop proving, become, and the impossible will find you. Not as a miracle, but as the natural consequence of who you became. So, back to the beginning. If this video reached you, it wasn't random. It's because some part of you is already ready, already tired of the old story, already realized something needs to change. And that part doesn't want excuses anymore. It wants action. It wants you to stop postponing, stop waiting, stop asking for signs when the sign is right in front of you. This video is the sign. This restlessness you're feeling is the sign. This tiredness of the same old pattern is the sign. Now the question is, will you ignore it again? Or will you finally listen? Because the impossible is knocking at the door. But it won't break in. It won't beg. It'll just wait for you to open. And if you don't open now, it'll leave. Not as punishment, but because its energy needs to go to whoever's ready. And maybe you're not yet, but if you're hearing this and something inside you woke up, then you're ready. And you know it. You just need to admit it. Now, if you follow the channel, you probably already know about the 7 mental keys. They're part of the Wealth Recode, a direct method that works exactly on the invisible blocks that keep you stuck in the same place. It's not theory. It's not cheap motivation. It's real, practical reprogramming that touches the root of the problem. It's different from everything you've seen. And if you feel ready to take the next step, to really unlock what's been blocked for years, the link is in the description. It's simple, it's direct, and it's for those who really want to change, not for those who just want to feel good for a few minutes. And if you made it this far, before you go, I want to recommend a video that complements everything we talked about today. It's video number 30 on the channel, where I talk about the power of closing cycles. Because you can recognize the signals, you can act, you can change, but if you don't close the old cycle, you'll drag its weight into the new one. And then nothing really changes. So after this one, go watch it. Everything's connected. And before closing, one last thing. The impossible isn't what seems impossible. The impossible is you continuing to live as if nothing could change. Because it can, and it will, if you allow it. The question is, will you allow it? This is The Initiate. See you in the next video.